This is Lake Waihola behind me right now, and Lake Waihola is part of this Waipori-Waihola Lake wetland complex. It's actually a tidal lake wetland system that's about 10 kilometers inland from the sea. 4,000 years ago, sea level was a little bit higher than it is now, and at that time these lakes were actually quite salty. They were salty enough to be true estuarine systems, so systems that had cockle beds in them and were truly like what we would consider to be much more marine type of ecosystem. But since that time, the sea level has been declining and these systems became more freshwater systems. So now they have freshwater mussels and a lot of freshwater fish species, a very significant wetland area for New Zealand and actually internationally. There are over 80 different species of birds that use this environment. There are many different fish that live within this system, including eels, lamprey or kanakana. We have kokopu, including giant kokopu. There are even marine or estuarine species that live in the lake, like flounders and mullet.
For us, for the people of Otago, this year I would say would represent the health of the catchment, really. I mean, it's a place where our people traditionally harvested massive amounts of food. It represents a place where we can practice our culture, our traditions, our customs, and live as we have lived across this landscape for the past 1,000 years. And the majority of the plains here was a system of interconnected wetland and sort of wetland forests. The hills were completely clothed in native bush. We had ample amounts of food, kai, in the forms of tuna, kokopu, our different types of galaxids. We had our waterfowl, as well as the forest birds, weka, kiwi, kereru. Incredibly important.
When Europeans first arrived here, there was initially a very big move to drain as much of the wetland area that was in here as possible and to start using that drained wetland soils to grow food. And so there's been a lot of modification to this system, and the ecology has had to adapt to it.
In terms of climate change, we know wetlands are super important for mitigating the effects of climate change. So they're really important for mitigating floods, providing water during dry times. They're home to a huge amount of biodiversity. They prevent erosion. And they also sequester carbon. So there's a huge number of benefits that come to keeping wetlands intact. One of the things that we see today are increased sediment loads in the river.
My elders, they speak of a time when the Taieri River was clear and you could see the gravel and the cobbles at the bottom of that river at all times of the year. And particularly in the lower end, which receives all of the sediment, all of the runoff and all of the nutrients, we simply don't see that anymore.
Anything coming off the land upstream will flow down through the Taieri system. A lot of that will be deposited in these lakes. With climate change, what's predicted to happen is drier summers, more droughts in the summer, and wetter winters, more intense rainfall events. So what we'll probably see is more of an increase in the extremes of flows. So drier summers, more drought, but then more flow in winter, more floods. The droughts will allow more salt water to flow into the system. And then greater floods will also bring more sediment and nutrients from the catchment into the system. And that could jeopardize the aquatic plant community. If that plant community collapses, then there is nothing growing on the bottom of the lake to hold the sediment, to hold the lake bed down, and winds that blow up the valley will resuspend a lot more sediment, and the lake will become a lot more muddy looking. And that increases the nutrients in the water column, and then you can have more algal blooms as well. These wetlands here are tidal, but as the sea level is going to rise, the water level in these wetlands will rise as well, and so we'll start to get wetlands pushing back against the drained farmlands around here and against some of the infrastructure as well, like roading. We can just imagine what that's going to do to the farming that's encroached on the wetland area. So that farming will struggle because the water level will rise up, it will push back in, the water will get saltier as well. And so it will be more difficult to maintain the current farming practices that we have in this region, and we will lose some of these really good soils.
As sea level's rising, the freshwater elements of that system are likely to get pushed further upstream and become stuck up against the current flood mitigation infrastructure that exists there. So we might see those freshwater parts of the wetlands disappear. Climate change is going to force us to change the way we use the land, particularly around these low-lying areas of the catchment, and there's going to be opportunities that come with that. For example, retiring land into wetland might provide some kind of economic return in terms of carbon credits. One of the things we can do to prepare for those increasing sea levels is to start putting the habitat there today, so that when the freshwater part of those wetlands moves upstream, the fish have got habitat already there to spawn and complete their life cycle.